But I think without further ado, we can start introducing ourselves. My name is Maximilian. I'm a publishing associate here at Songtrust. What that basically means my day-to-day essentially involves talking to musicians and songwriters, publishers, managers, record labels, basically anyone who has any kind of involvement in the music industry to try to help them figure out how music publishing works. It is quite a complicated sector of the music industry. And my role is just to sort of help them figure out how they can set themselves up appropriately and how they can sort of maximize their presence in publishing and make sure they don't really miss out on any royalties and can take full advantage of that.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm Noelle. I manage the client acquisition team here at Songtrust. It's full of publishing associates and specialists that do exactly what Max describes. We work very closely with our client services team and our marketing team to make sure that we are educating everyone the best way we can, which is why we do a lot of these webinars to hopefully, spread the word about what music publishing is and educate everyone in the community about those things, so you can feel better prepared to take that part of your career to the next level and make sure you're all set up and ready to go. For today's agenda, we will first go through what Songtrust is, who can use our platform, a little bit of background of like why Songtrust was even created. That was about 11 years ago. And then we will be walking through some features that are available on our platform. I'm actually going to log into what's known as a demo account. So you'll actually be able to see what it looks like if you were to have a Songtrust account and what those steps are to getting your account set up, so you can get an inside look at that. And lastly, we will be discussing why music publishing is so important, what steps creators must take to be fully covered for global royalty collection. So we will be covering a lot. Stick with us. We will be doing a Q&A at the end, like Max mentioned, so feel free to put those in the Q&A box. We have our team members monitoring that, so we can go through those at the end. So if we don't answer or go through those topics throughout, we can definitely touch on them at the end.
All right, so starting right off the bat, what is Songtrust? And perhaps more importantly, why is Songtrust? And to really answer this question, I think it's important to sort of discuss what traditional music publishing looked like before Songtrust existed. So if you can take your mind back 20 years, all the way back to before the music industry was fully digital, you basically had a situation where access to music publishing was restricted to a very small, as now still, honestly, music publishing was still restricted to a very small sliver of musicians out there. Like, call them the 1% of artists. Basically, you had traditional publishers, and they still exist today, like Sony Music Publishing and Universal, who would seek out talented songwriters to invest in. They give them an advance. They provide creative services, find sync deals, and essentially try to exploit their works to the fullest in order to make back their investment that they paid off in the form of an advance. And in return, of course, they also took ownership of the songs that they signed, right? So if you were a really big act, right? Let's say you're a Michael Jackson of the 80s and 70s and 90s. You would sign with a traditional publisher. They would give you an advance, maybe. They would pay you, they would take ownership of your works. They would register your songs, right, at all these societies around the world. And they would essentially be in charge of collecting all those royalties that are coming in from all these different countries. But if you were sort of a regular musician, the 99% of artists, right? So basically most musicians, back in a pre-digital era, your audiences were mostly local, right? If you're a US act, maybe you've got some listeners in Canada, maybe some in the UK, but primarily your audiences are going to be local. So in order to collect on your publishing royalties, you really only had to be affiliated with a handful of societies, right? Your BMIs, ASCAPs, maybe a few mechanical societies here and there, the HFA. This, of course, all totally changed with the digitization of the music industry and the sort of lowering costs of entering the music market and becoming a musician, right? Before, you had to have a studio if you wanted to record music, or book studio time. Nowadays, you can just have Ableton or FL Studio on your laptop, and really anyone can become a musician at a much lower cost than before. And on top of that, the arrival of companies like Spotify and Apple Music really globalized audiences, right? So even your artist who's, your 18-year-old who's just getting started and maybe releasing some beats on Spotify is going to find that a majority or a good part of their streams are coming from outside their home territory. You've got listeners all over the world. If any of you have a Spotify for Artists, I'm sure if you scroll through there, you'll see that your audiences are coming from basically everywhere. But unfortunately, no solution was developed to help these artists collect on these royalties, right? They still don't have access to a traditional publishing deal or a traditional publisher who's going to make sure that the registrations are made in all these different societies and all these different countries where their music is being listened to in order for them to be able to fully collect on their royalties, right? Until Songtrust came along. So essentially, Songtrust was built as a tailor-made solution to these 99% of artists, most of artists who are releasing music, are still promoting themselves, putting themselves out there, who aren't quite at the point where a traditional publisher would decide to make the investment of an advance, right? But at the same time, just don't have the bandwidth to start administering their own publishing company and sort of make these registrations themselves. Because again, your listeners are probably coming from dozens and dozens of different countries, and to manage those registrations is almost an impossible task. And on top of that, now that artists have more access to tools to promote themselves, maybe they don't necessarily need a publishing company to sort of exploit their works. There are different platforms and different services that you can access in order to promote your music yourself. And so maybe you're thinking, I don't want to give up ownership of my works, right? I want to retain ownership of that because I have the option of doing so. So a traditional publishing deal is much less appealing. Ownership is an increasingly important aspect of what musicians value these days. So when you take all these things combined, the digitization of the music industry, lowering barriers of entry to becoming a musician, and the increased sort of emphasis on ownership of your music, you begin to see that there was a sort of a big hole in the publishing industry that Songtrust stepped in to solve. So what are some of the solutions that Songtrust presented? What are some of the problems that were being, what the challenges that were being presented to these new batch of artists that are coming in, and how did Songtrust kind of come up with a solution for them? So there's a couple of things that Songtrust managed to do. So the first is obviously access, right? The main problem to solve was how do we allow these 99% of creators to get access to these publishing royalties? And so Songtrust is an open platform. We don't vet artists, right? As long as you have access to, as long as you're the owner of a composition, right? You can register with us, you can register your songs with us, and we will register that work in our network of 60 plus societies, and you can begin collecting on your royalties, right? And there's no barrier to entry really, except being the owner of an original work of music. Coverage, obviously super important, right? Now that you have audiences coming from all over the world, you want to make sure that you're earning those royalties from all over the world. And Songtrust has built the largest network of collection societies in the world, 60 plus societies, 245 plus different territories. That's roughly 98% of the music market. So we really have the best coverage in the music industry, and we solved for that. Independence, right? As I mentioned earlier, owning your own work, really, really important to creators nowadays. And of course, Songtrust takes no ownership of your work. You maintain 100% ownership of your works. When you register your songs with us, we simply take care of the administration of the registration and help you collect on those royalties. Artists today increasingly want to be flexible. They want to be able to change course. They want to be able to change their business model, so to speak, whenever they are presented with a new opportunity. So flexibility is something that Songtrust really had in mind when Songtrust started this project 10 years ago. And so as a result of that, we work on a non-exclusive basis, right? We work on a song-by-song basis. So you can register as many songs or as few songs as you'd like with us, right? We're not preventing you from signing another publishing contract with somebody else or administering through someone else, as long as, of course, there's no overlap in terms of the songs that you're registering with these different publishing administrators or in a publishing deal with. And of course, the term is a lot shorter than what you would get from a traditional publisher. So when you hand over a song to Songtrust and you register it with us, we retain the administration rights for a year. And after that, you're free to take it to somewhere else or keep it with us if you want to keep working with us, which is very different from what a traditional publisher would do. Their deal lengths typically run around 3 years, is around the industry standard. So immediately you have a lot more flexibility with how you kind of set up your business as a creator. And on top of that, I think the final thing that's really important to mention is the time saving. Setting up your own publishing company, administering your own works, is a massive effort, especially if you're trying to get as much coverage as possible, right? Again, your listeners are coming from dozens of different countries in all likelihood. And for you to set up your own publishing company, register that as an LLC or a corporation, and then affiliate that publishing company with all these different societies, make this registrations individually to each different society, that's a lot of time that could otherwise be spent where it should be, which is, if you're a musician, making music. Like that's what you should be doing. It's what you've decided to do. It's what you probably love to do if you're here. And so Songtrust solves for that, right? You register your song once with us and we take care of the rest. Essentially, you register with our network and we just ensure that you get paid out after that. So looking at all those things, that's essentially why Songtrust exists. That's how we've decided to solve for these issues. And I think, yeah, that pretty much sums it up, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And it's definitely like a long, story of
Sure.
it's hard to imagine what the publishing industry was like without all this access, because I feel like, especially since we work here and since Songtrust has been around for a number of years, it's easy to have that view of like, oh yeah, like, publishing, like, anyone can sign up and get it. But to put yourself as an independent creator, 20 years ago, where you didn't have access to a publishing deal unless you caught the eye of one of the majors, is really the only way that you would able to, to get that coverage and to get that collection that you can now just sign up for, which is awesome. So now we're going to go right into the platform walkthrough. But before we get into that, I would like to just touch on metadata and the information that you need to know about your songs before you can register them. Because when you register them, this is the information that you need. And although it's not the most exciting part of making music, it is one of the most important parts, is knowing this information about each one of your songs and about your co-writers, and having these conversations with your co-writers about who's going to own what percentage of the song, so that everyone's on the same page. And when everyone goes ahead and registers that song, it is correct and it's accurate, and we're not, playing catch up years later on with 5 different incorrect registrations for the same song. So as you can see here, we have the song title, pretty self-explanatory, but something that I do want to mention about the song title is you do want to make sure you're including alternate song titles as well, whether it's in another language or, something maybe with like radio edit in parentheses if you do have a version of your song that way. Next up, we have the songwriter name and IPI number. IPI number is interested parties information number, and it is basically your ID number assigned to you by your PRO, your performance rights organization. And not only do you need to know your own songwriter name, PRO, and IPI number, but those of your co-writers as well, and the confirmed splits. You want to make sure you have confirmed splits for each song that is going to be released, because like I mentioned before, everyone's on the same page, everyone's registering that song with those same splits. Otherwise, the song's going to conflict, royalties are held, and it genuinely is a big mess of data. So it is really important to have those conversations early on. You then have the ISWC, which is the International Standard Work Code. You would only have this code if you had previously registered your songs at your PRO, because that's where they are assigned. So if you have never done that, you wouldn't have this code, and that's okay. It would get assigned one at the PRO. And then you have the International Standard Recording Code. Each recording that exists of your song would have an International Standard Recording Code assigned by your distributor. If you don't know this code, you can find it in your distribution account or in the Songtrust account, which you will see once we get in there. We do have a way of finding that for you through our Spotify search tool. So we try to make it pretty easy. We also, just to let you know, just shared a split sheet in the chat box. You can go ahead and use that, download it, share it with your friends. Make sure you have a split sheet filled out for each song that you have collaborators with. All right, so now we're going to do the platform walkthrough. First things first, this is what the Songtrust website looks like if you haven't seen it. I just want to direct everyone to like where on the website you sign in and register if you're not yet a client. So it's on this top right corner. If you were to register, you just click here and you fill out all your information and go ahead and create your account. And then, sorry, it's blocked here. I seem to be blocked by my Zoom bar. So let me just move that over. Okay. And then if you were to, have an account, the sign in button is right here. I've already signed into the demo account. And just as a disclaimer, nothing in this account is real. So all these numbers, they aren't going to add up. There's a bunch of really wonky names in here and song titles, but it is something that we're able to use to show you what an account looks like without showing you obviously any confidential client information. So this is all fake information, but it is really informative to be able to see how the Songtrust accounts work. So I'm going to give you a quick overview of the 4 steps getting started with Songtrust, which include registering with Songtrust, adding a songwriter, registering a song, and adding an ISRC code to that song. Those are the 4 main steps. I'll take you through some general things of what's in the menu as well. Obviously, at this point, we've already done the first step, which is register with Songtrust, because we are now in the account. And I'm going to take you to how to add a songwriter. So for this example, let's say I'm a songwriter who is setting up my Songtrust account just to collect on behalf of myself. And the reason I'm mentioning this is because a lot of different personas can use Songtrust. You could be a manager setting it up for your clients. You could be a label who has a publishing arm. You could be a publisher. And that would kind of differ the way that you use the account. But as a songwriter, I'm adding myself as a songwriter to the account. If I were a publisher, I would be adding my clients as songwriters to the account. But today I'm going to add myself as a songwriter. So I'm going to go ahead here to the add songwriter button, which was pulled out from this menu here. And the first thing that you're going to be asked is this writer currently affiliated with a PRO? And that's because you have to be affiliated with a PRO in order to work with a publisher and have your songs registered at the global PROs and pay sources that we work with. I'll take you through both paths, but first, let's say that I am a member with a PRO. So I'm already affiliated with ASCAP. So I click yes. What PRO do I belong to? ASCAP. I don't actually, but let's just pretend. And then, I would just fill out my information here. Let's use our classic example here, Jackie Songtrust. You'd fill out the email, which as a songwriter would probably be the same email that I used to set up the Songtrust account. My birth date, which is used to verify with ASCAP that I am the person I'm saying that I am. And my IPI number, which is that interested parties information number that I mentioned before. It's typically 9 digits, could be 10 if I've signed up more recently. And that is like my ID number that was assigned to me by ASCAP when I signed up. So if I'm not sure about this number, I could use their repertory search. I would just type in my first and last name in there, be able to find my IPI number, or I could log in to my ASCAP account and find my IPI number there. Quick note, it is different than your member ID number. Sometimes those two are confused. Next up here, we have this question of, does this writer have a publishing entity? As a songwriter, you can create a publishing company at your PRO. You might not have done that, which is totally fine. It's not necessary and you don't need it if you're going to be working with a publisher, because we are enabling you to access that publisher share anyway. But if you did already set it up, you would want to definitely let us know. It would have its publishing company name, the PRO that it's with, and its own IPI number. Also, if you are a publisher or a label that owns someone else's publishing or is administering on their behalf, you would be adding each songwriter to your account and entering your publishing company for attached to each songwriter or composer. I would then sign. You could either type it out with your mouse or prefer to type. So we make it pretty easy there. Now I'm going to go back and show you what it would look like if I was not affiliated with a PRO yet, because if you're not affiliated with a PRO yet, Songtrust can affiliate you as a songwriter / composer with ASCAP or BMI. If you are a US citizen, we can affiliate you with SOCAN if you are based in Canada. And then if you're based anywhere else in the world, we can affiliate you with IMRO, which is the society based in Ireland. They allow us to affiliate international writers there, which is super helpful. Then you're able to do everything in one place. You don't have to go worrying about, entering all that same information into different accounts, because you would basically just submit your PRO application right through your Songtrust account. So let's say this time I'm going to choose BMI. I would then fill out the BMI application right through the Songtrust account. So this is all the information that BMI would require me to enter if I were to affiliate as a songwriter there. Songtrust is just submitting it on their behalf. And this is the information. You will check off that you have read and agreed the membership contract. You can even open it up here. That is the membership contract with BMI. And then you just go ahead and click Add Songwriter. But for this, I am just going to go back. And now, once I've added myself as a songwriter, I'm going to go to register a song. Quick note, I do want to take you just to like the main songwriters page. If you are an individual songwriter, like I am pretending I am now, you would only have one songwriter here. You'd be able to see your application status when you joined. The way that this looks here is more aligned with like a publishing company using Songtrust or a manager using Songtrust to manage multiple songwriters. And that gives you an idea of what the songwriters page look like. Now I'm going to take you through how to register a song. So first things first, just like the metadata slide that we had before, we have enter song title. Let's say I wrote a beautiful love song, but I also released two versions of this song, one of them being a radio edit. So I'm going to add a alternate song title for radio edit. If you have, any versions in other languages, anything like that, you want to add all those alternate titles. Songwriters, I'm going to add myself as one of the songwriters on the song. And let's say for this example that I wrote the song with one other collaborator and we agreed, let's split the song 50-50. We both worked on lyrics and music together. We felt like we put in equal effort. So we're going to split the song 50-50. So I'm going to put in 50% for my ownership and check off that I worked on both the lyrics and music. And then I'm going to add my co-writer who also worked on lyrics and music and owns the other 50% of the song. So obviously I already had that co-writer added to my account, but let's take you through how you would add that co-writer if you didn't have them in your account yet. So for anyone that you are not collecting on behalf of, you need to add to your Songtrust account as an outside co-writer. So I'm going to click here, add new outside co-writer, and I get this pop up. And basically you have to add this information for anyone that you need to add as a co-writer to your songs, but you do not own their publishing, you're not collecting on their behalf, but you have to enter the splits correctly. So I'm going to go ahead and add information for my co-writer. It's supposed to be 9 digits, my apologies. So that's how you go in and add an outside co-writer. That's also what an outside co-writer is. I think there sometimes is some confusion about that, and I want to make sure we have that cleared up because you are entering the splits for the whole song right on this page. And as you can see, since this adds up to 100, it's in green, lets you know it's all good. The splits are added up accurately and completely to 100%. So we are good there on the splits. ISWC is optional. I would only have this code if I had previously registered my song with my PRO, because that's where this code is assigned. And since I haven't, I don't have this code, so I'm going to leave it blank. Lyrics are also optional because they are, you don't need them to collect your royalties, but if you want to enter them there, feel free. I'm going to go ahead and register the song. And we have this pop-up. So this is taking us right to step 4, where we're adding our ISRC code connecting that recording information to our original composition. So it says, wait, you're not done. In order for us to successfully process your song, you must add a recording, which is an ISRC. So I'm going to click here. And this is the add a recording page. After you register your song, you will be taken here, but I'll show you how to get there from the songs page as well. Automatically, it takes you to this search Spotify section where your song title is already typed in. Obviously, if it is a very, generic song title, like my love song title, a lot of songs are going to pop up. But you can also type in the artist name in this search bar and be able to drill down a little bit easier. And let's say this is my song. Again, this is not actually going to register this as a song because nothing in this demo account goes through. But let's say, for this example, this is my song. All I have to do is click add recording. That one looks like I've already fake added it when I did my practice run. So let's do this one. Are you sure you want to add this recording? Be sure to only add recordings of this song. Yes, I'm sure. And then as you can see, this is checked off right here. So that lets you know it has successfully added your ISRC to your song. And we're all done. If you don't want to use the Spotify search tool for whatever reason, maybe you're having trouble with it, or you just have your Spotify URI on hand, you could always copy and paste it right here. You can also copy and paste your ISRC codes right from your distribution account into this search bar as well to add them. So there's a few options, but I think the search Spotify one is definitely the easiest. You don't have to log in anywhere else to find it. We can go ahead and do that for you. And those are the 4 main steps, but I do want to open up the menu here just to kind of take you through the other features that we have and the other things you can do in the account very quickly. I'm not going to go into them because we would be here all day, but just to show you what else the Songtrust account offers, you have the set list submission tool for submitting your set list for live performances. You have your royalties dashboard. Once you start receiving royalties, you would go in there to track where your royalties are coming from, when they were generated, when they were collected, what platform they came from, and all that great information. You also have your account settings. In there is where you would connect all your direct deposit information through the service called Payoneer, which is what we use to pay our clients through direct deposit. We do quarterly royalty payments as long as you have $5 of earned royalties in your account. You also have your YouTube portal. Any songs that you register in your account and add an ISRC to will be automatically sent over to YouTube to scan their system for videos using your songs. But you can also go into your YouTube section of your account to manually claim videos if you know that they're using your songs. And you can also whitelist channels if you don't want any videos on that channel getting claimed by Songtrust. And that concludes our platform demo. Let me go ahead and get back to the deck so we can continue on here. And Max is going to talk a little bit more about the importance of music publishing and why this is even something that you should be worried about or considering. And obviously showing up to this webinar and learning about it is definitely the first step. And thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. Yeah. Definitely great to see so many people here. And I imagine that after looking at that process, some of you might be thinking, why should I go through all of this? Like, what's ISRCs, ISWCs, all this stuff? Why do I need to know all of this? And why should I participate in this part of the music industry? And to be perfectly blunt, the first is just revenue, right? Like registering your songs, ensuring that your songs are earning you all the money that money is owed to you, right? These societies are collecting on this money on your behalf, regardless of whether there's a registration there to sort of match it to you and get it paid out to you. So this money is already getting collected on your behalf. And if you're an artist who's serious about their craft, what you should be looking into is creating a sustainable business model for getting you through your career as a musician. And part of that, a huge part of that, is obviously capitalizing on every single drop of income you can get your hands on, especially because in nowadays music industry, those sources of income can be somewhat meager, right? So as a musician, if you're looking to make this your life and you're passionate about becoming a musician, you shouldn't, of course, you should be thinking about promoting your music in the short term and getting it out there and working on new material and finding collaborations. But you also need to be thinking about how your music career is going to evolve 20 years down the line, and investing in this as early as possible, making sure that your registrations are up to date, is going to sustain you throughout your career, which is what you should be looking to do. The second thing that's really important, especially if you're working with Songtrust, that Noel helpfully pulled up this graph here, is data. So when you use Songtrust, you get access to what we call a royalty dashboard. And essentially here you can kind of see a rough form of it. Basically what this does is it breaks down exactly where your royalties are coming from, exactly which sources are paying your royalties out, how much each source of royalty is paying it out to you, how many of them are mechanicals, how many of them are performance royalties, what countries they're coming from, what societies they're coming from, all this stuff. And as with basically everything these days, data and information is an incredibly empowering tool for you in your career. If you see there's a huge a bunch of royalties coming in from a radio play in a certain country, then you might think, okay, I can go tour there now, that there's an audience for me there. So data is a really, really empowering tool for you. And Songtrust is obviously aware of that. So we provide this royalty dashboard for you to check out so that you can use as much information as possible to sort of optimize your career. And the final, and this might not be immediately obvious, but it's a promotional opportunity. Being involved in publishing, having your works properly registered, right, is something that other artists will take note of. If someone likes a track, right, some other creative likes a track and goes to look up the registration on ASCAP or BMI or PRS, whatever society's database, they'll see your name on that and think, I really like this track. I might want to work with this artist. I'm going to reach out to him and I'm going to see if I can get a collaboration going, and something really amazing could be born of that. I think on top of that, it also shows that you're serious about your career. It's a real mark of maturity as a musician and as a creator to see that you're involved in something that for many, even sort of established people in the music industry, is kind of like an afterthought, music publishing, even though it's so critical and so important to a sustained career. So getting involved in publishing has a myriad of benefits, not all of them obvious, but still incredibly, incredibly important. And again, a final question is why should you do it with Songtrust, right? So why are we the good solution? And I talked a little bit about this earlier, but one of the most important parts is obviously the fact that we're flexible, right? You can sign as many or as few songs as you want with us. There's no commitments to having to deliver X amount of songs as you would have traditionally with a normal publisher. As many or as few songs as you like, and then whenever you want to sort of cancel your deal, you can cancel after 1 year as opposed to 3. On top of that, we pay 4 times a year, something that I didn't mention earlier. Most societies pay out every 6 months. We'll pay you out 4 times a year, so basically every quarter, every 3 months. And that increase in how often you get paid can really contribute to your flexibility as a musician and what you can end up doing with the money that you earn from royalty payouts. Like I mentioned earlier, you can register as many songs or as few songs as you like. Ownership, right? You keep 100% of the ownership of the songs that you register with us. We're just administering them. And the pricing is also something that I think we're very competitive on. It's a $100 initial sign-up fee, and it's a one-time fee. So it's not like you have to pay this every year or every month. You pay it once and you have your account for life. You can administer with us for the rest of your career as a musician. Unlike some other administrators where you might have to pay a monthly fee, which means that you have to keep paying in order to retain access to your publishing royalties. For us, it's a simple question of do you want to invest this in your career, which is essentially what you're doing. And the 15% administration fee on the things that we collect on the back end. I should note that the 15% administration fee is only on what we are able to collect directly for you, the publisher's share. If you're affiliated with a PRO as a writer, which you have to be in order to work with us, that writer's share of royalties is going to get paid out directly to you. So that's not something that the 15% commission applies to. And yeah, of course, the largest coverage in the music industry, 90% of the music market, 98% of the music market is not something that you'll find with literally any other publishing administrator. So if you're looking to get as much coverage as you can, we're definitely the way to go. And I think with that, we can sort of hop into Q&A.
Yeah.
We do have some initial questions that I think are sort of general questions that most people have that will apply to most people. And yeah, Noel, if you want to get us started off with those.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So like Max mentioned, we're just going to run through these because it's oftentimes we get these questions anyway, but we are going to take a look at the questions that everyone's been putting in the Q&A box as well. So the first one is, can I use Songtrust if I'm using CD Baby or DistroKid? And very simply put, you do need to be working with a distributor and a publisher if your distributor is only handling distribution for you. So there are some distributors like CD Baby who will have like a CD Baby Pro option, there, in which case they are handling your publishing administration for you, and then you can do everything there if that's what you want to do. Other distributors like DistroKid don't offer a publishing administration opt-in, in which case you do need to handle your distribution and your publishing separately. There are some benefits to separating your distribution and your publishing. If you are looking to like jump around from distributor to distributor to like see which one you like best, it probably is easier to keep all your publishing in one place. That being said, there are a lot of options out there, but you do need to have both your distribution and your publishing covered.
So the next question we get a lot is, can I work with Sound Exchange and Songtrust? And the answer is absolutely. Sound Exchange is collecting a different royalty type. They're collecting royalties on your master recording, whereas Songtrust is collecting royalties on the composition. Sound Exchange is free to sign up to, so I encourage everyone here to just do that. Again, they're collecting on the master, we're collecting on the composition, so there's absolutely no conflict there. Highly encourage you to do both.
Yeah, and a lot of times there's some confusion there because I think they sound a little bit similar, like Sound Exchange, Songtrust, but you do want to be working with both. It is super important. And if you've seen our royalties checklist, you can see that both, working with an administrator and using Sound Exchange are both on there. Next up, we have, can you use more than one publishing administrator? That could be like working with a traditional publisher on Songtrust, or maybe working with more than one admin. And the answer is yes. So, but with a caveat. So yes, as long as you're working with those publishers for different portions of your catalog, you cannot, assign the same ownership and the same songs to two different publishers, because you are entering an agreement with that publisher for them to administer your ownership. So you can't do the same thing in both places. But, and we do have some clients that do this, that, are in a traditional publishing deal for, their back catalog, or maybe just their new songs, and there is a gap in collection that they don't want to sign the rest of their catalog over to that other publisher, and they want to handle it their own, so they'll use Songtrust for that. And it is a great solution in that way, because we do work on a song by song basis.
Another question we get a lot is, what makes Songtrust different from other publishing administrators? And like I mentioned earlier, I think the standout point is our collection network. We have the largest in the music industry. So if coverage and full coverage is something that is a priority for you, as I think it should be, then I think there's Songtrust is your best bet for that. On top of that, other publishing administrators might take control of your sync. So sync essentially being if your music gets paired with an ad or a TV show or a movie. Some other publishing administrators will say, okay, we are the ones who you have to go through if you want to get your music synced to something, and you can't really pursue those opportunities by yourself. Whereas with us, you have full control of your sync. You're free to get your music placed wherever you'd like. Of course, we'll collect on back-end royalties that are generated from that. Quick caveat there: the sync has to have occurred within your term with Songtrust for us to be able to do that. But of course, you keep 100% of the upfront fee. We collect those back-end royalties for you, full control of your sync. And then, yeah, obviously the very flexible term that we have, no song commitments, as many or as few songs as you'd like. The 1-year term, after that, you can, take your song elsewhere or keep it with us. Flexibility is something that's a very high priority for us. And I think the way we administer works really reflects that.
Yeah, definitely. And lastly, we have, what royalties do Songtrust collect? So we do enable our clients to collect their global publishing royalties, and what that includes is both performance and mechanical. And that means a lot of things. Like performance could be what Max mentioned, like those back-end royalties from sync placements, radio play, streams of your music generate both performance and mechanical royalties. royalties that are generated from YouTube and TikTok, basically anything leading up to those performance and mechanical royalties, which is what your publishing royalties consist of. I'm going to go ahead and pull some questions that came from all of you lovely attendees. Okay, so let's see. Can I register my label artist songs with Songtrust and get paid from their songs in all countries? So basically, as a label, if you do have a publishing agreement with your clients, so if you are in agreement with them to either administer their publishing on their behalf, or if you own their publishing outright, you would be able to use Songtrust to collect on their behalf for whatever songs are applicable in your agreement. And we do collect global, so it is a world agreement. We would be collecting the global publishing royalties. If you have questions about like specific countries, I recommend, maybe replying to the email that we're going to send out with the resources and everything, and someone from our team can get back to you if you have concerns about specific countries.
All right. Another question here. If Songtrust is your publishing administrator for self-publishing independent rights owners, are you still your own publisher? In other words, they have not given away their publishing rights to Songtrust. So yeah, we work with publishers as well as individual creators. And like I mentioned earlier, when you work with us, you keep 100% of the ownership of your song. Basically, what would happen is when you register your song with us, like Noel showed, you essentially put, if you have your own publishing company, you let us know that you have your own publishing company. And when we go to register that song with the societies in our network, your publishing company appears on the registration, and then it's sort of Songtrust is mentioned as an afterthought. Essentially, what you're doing when in that situation is you're handing over the administration of your works to Songtrust, but your publisher is still the one with the publishing rights to Songtrust. And if you decide to not work with us after that 1-year term, you can just simply remove your songs from our administration, and we would obviously the administration rights return to your publishing company very smoothly. So yeah, no conflicts there. We work with publishers all the time. No problem.
Yeah, we are enabling you to be your own publisher, just on a larger scale. So a lot of times, as an independent creator, you would create a publishing company at your PRO, but that would only enable you to collect publishing royalties from your PRO, from your home territory. I mean, what Songtrust is doing is expanding that collection network to the 60+ societies we work with. So you're still your own publisher, it's just on a global scale, and you're administered by Songtrust. Let's see what else we can get through here. So I'm part of a group, and we collectively are record label owners. We registered the label as a publisher with our PRO. Should there be a Songtrust account for each one of us as the artist and one for the label? And how would we split that? So each Songtrust account is essentially the same, and the only differences are how you set that up. If you're part of like a group or a band, I usually recommend to have one account with each of you added as songwriters to that account, especially if you are under a label. It makes the most sense if you're sharing ownership of songs to have one account and register those songs in your account with the splits. And in the royalty statement, you're able to see what percentage of each royalty payment is supposed to go to which songwriter within the account. So we make it very easy to split that up. You do have to agree on your own splits. Typically, a lot of people would agree on like even splits. If there's 4 people, like 25% 4 ways. Or, if you feel like you did the whole song and you only asked for, someone to help you with one very small portion, it would be like a 90-10 split. But again, that's agreed upon between the collaborators, but we can work with that situation in whatever way you prefer, but that is typically like the easiest way and what we recommend.
So let's see, I'm going through these questions. I think there's an interesting one here about what if my outside co-writer is not affiliated with a PRO and doesn't have an IPI number. So that's actually relatively common. That happens sometimes. One of the people you co-wrote with doesn't have an affiliation, hasn't gone through the process of getting their publishing set up. That information isn't strictly necessary when you add an outside co-writer. that is not an excuse for you guys to not do your due diligence and give us as much information as possible when you register your songs. The accuracy of registrations is really critical to the ability to collect royalties, especially if there's sort of an issue down the line with the registration. If you know the information and you have a way, or you don't know it but have a way of getting access to it whenever you make a registration, please, please, please make it as accurate as you possibly can. However, if there's really no way, simply because they don't have a PRO affiliation, no IPI, then it's not 100% necessary. But we do need the name, and we obviously need the percentage of the song they worked on.
Exactly. It's definitely a last resort to just enter like the first and last name, but you only have control over yourself. You obviously cannot force, you can recommend to your co-writers that they affiliate with a PRO or that they work with a publisher, but at the end of the day, you're responsible for you and your ownership. And as long as you're doing what you can to keep that in check, then you're really doing the most that you can.
Yeah, absolutely.
How far back in years do you collect royalties? So we can collect as far back as what the pay sources still have. So there is this idea of retroactive royalties. Typically, the pay sources and societies will hold on to back royalties for about 2 to 3 years. That is an average. There are some societies that don't really hold on to old royalties, and there are some that hold on to them for a much longer period of time. But 2 to 3 years is usually the average. And as long as those royalties are still there and they have not been redistributed to the top publishers of the market, which is what happens after that 2 to 3 year period, then Songtrust can collect them for you. As long as they're at the society, they're yours. If they've already been redistributed to the top publishers of the market, there is no getting those back. But there is something to say about being proactive about registering your songs as soon as they're released to make sure that you are collecting all of the royalties that were generated for that song. I think we can do 2 more max.
Okay, sounds good. I love answering these questions, so I'm like eager to go as much as we can, but obviously there's a time limit on this. I found another one here. As an artist rep, so a manager in a record label, nice. Can you start up your own account before solidifying who the songwriters linked to the account will be, or does this need to be solidified before setting up your account? You can create an account anytime you want. You don't necessarily have to know what your songwriters are going to be. When you pay that $100 fee, essentially what that's going to is a token that you can use to add a songwriter to your account. And you can add that songwriter after the fact. So there's nothing stopping you from getting that account set up as soon as you'd like to, and then adding songwriters as you go on. You don't have to add them all at the start of in the initial sign-up process. You have the flexibility to sort of add songwriters as time goes on, whenever you add someone to your roster or you start managing another artist. So if you're looking to set up a Songtrust account, but you don't know if you're going to be putting anyone in there, yeah, you can go ahead and do that. Absolutely.
Let's try to pull one that has maybe some common themes from the other questions. Can a non-American resident sign up with BMI? For example, can someone from Ghana sign up to BMI through Songtrust? So BMI and ASCAP actually do allow anyone from any country to affiliate themselves as a songwriter / composer there. But through Songtrust, we can only affiliate US citizens with ASCAP and BMI, but you can affiliate yourself separately with ASCAP or BMI if you are not a US citizen and you really want to be affiliated there. That's totally fine. You can do that separately. And then when you create your Songtrust account, you would go through that path that I showed you where you're already affiliated with PRO. You enter that you are, in this case, affiliated with ASCAP or BMI, and you enter your PRO IPI number. So it is possible. We just can't affiliate non-US citizens with ASCAP and BMI through our platform. They would have the option of using IMRO, which is the Irish PRO. All right, unfortunately, we do have to wrap it up. We do have a time limit. Don't forget to follow us on socials and subscribe to our newsletter so you can know about the upcoming webinars and what we're up to, and stay up to date on the music news. And yeah, you can reach out to sales@songtrust.com for anyone that has questions. If you are already a client, the email would be support songtrust.com. Thank you everyone so much for joining us. I hope that this was helpful and that it answered your questions about Songtrust and music publishing.